welcome back to my channel. So today's video is all about the Chanel Classic Flap. I'm going through all the different sizes that I own and I'm going to be doing a comparison and going over the pros and cons of each size. So I have almost the full lineup here. I am missing the maxi size, but I have the small, I have the medium and the jumbo flap. I'm also including in this video the minis as well. Even though minis aren't technically considered classic flaps by Chanel, I figured that they are similar enough that most people would want to see them compared. So I am including those styles also. So I hope you guys enjoy this and let's get started. So first up, my Chanel Square Mini, and I love this bag. I am going to rank my favorites later on in the video, but I definitely say out of the two minis, the square one is still my favorite, and I do get the sense that most people prefer the rectangle mini, but for me, it's always the square mini. I just love everything about it, from the shape, the style, and also very particularly the chain length as well. On the rectangle mini, which I think is more suited to wearing crossbody, it does have quite a long chain, whereas the square mini, I feel like the chain is much more proportional. I do like to wear my bags on the shoulder, so it's just easy to kind of pop on there, and I don't feel like it looks too long or too short. It's just perfect. So I love it for all of those reasons. You can actually fit in a decent amount as well, and I will show you in a moment what exactly can fit inside, but especially considering it looks like a very petite bag, I can fit in my essentials if I'm clever with the packing. And it's just a really great little style, which is very kind of quintessentially Chanel, but I feel like because of the miniature size, it just adds the element of fun to it as well. I would say I don't wear this bag as much anymore, but that is pretty much purely because I'm terrified of having something happen to it. I know that Caviar minis are like gold dust now. Chanel stopped producing them. I don't know why. They seem to only produce lambskin ones at the moment. Hopefully they will bring them back, but for that reason they are very difficult to get in this combination. So I am aware that if I did damage it or if it got stolen, then I wouldn't be able to replace it very easily at all. So for that reason, I don't use it as much. I probably should, but before I had these concerns, I did use it a ton and I did not baby it, and the bag still looks like good as new. So it was a very good buy, and I'd say that my love for this bag really hasn't waned at all over the years. I find it to be really functional, beautiful, and of course because it's Chanel, it's very classic as well, but definitely one of my favorites. I think the Square Mini is just fantastic. Okay, so first up is my Chanel Square Mini, and I have filled this completely full. As you can see, my sunglasses are peeping out the top there, but as you can see, the shape is not distorted at all, so this is a very comfortable fit, even though it is quite full. So here I have my sunglasses, a lipstick, my phone, a little card holder, and my Louis Vuitton key pouch as well. You could definitely swap out these two items and have just a slimline wallet. So this is my Louis Vuitton Victorine wallet, and that fits in nicely along with my phone as well if you wanted to do that. However, because I do have my key pouch, it does require a slightly smaller card holder. So you can just make that choice, but even with the compact wallet, you can still fit in your sunglasses and a lipstick as well. For the next size up, I do have the rectangle mini, and as I mentioned, the reason why I don't like this one quite as much as the square mini is because of the chain length. I do wish it was just a little bit shorter. It's definitely more suitable to wearing crossbody, and I know that crossbody is probably the most popular style of bag nowadays, so if that's exclusively how you wear your bags, then that's really not an issue unless you are very petite. But as I mentioned, I do like to wear my bags just popped on the shoulder, and whenever I do that, I do feel like it's a little bit long in terms of the drop. So that is my one niggle and why I generally prefer the square. But apart from that, I do think it's a really cute little size, and it's also a very good way of getting the Chanel Classic Flap look for a little bit less. And the reason why Chanel do not consider the minis to be part of the Classic Flap line is because they don't have that double flap. So technically, if a bag doesn't have the double flap element on the inside, then it isn't considered a Classic Flap. And that can be a very good thing because not only is it a lot lighter because it doesn't have that extra leather bit, but it's also considerably cheaper. And because you don't have that double flap on either mini, it also means that you can fit in a lot more. So even though the rectangle mini looks like it would be a lot smaller than the small or the medium classic flap size, it can actually fit in a surprisingly similar amount. And I will show you in a second, but the capacity difference really isn't that drastic at all. So in terms of value for money, this is a much better option if you did like that kind of crossbody element, because you get the look of a classic flap. It's a little bit lighter, so a more comfortable wear, and you can fit in almost the same amount. The rectangle mini is pretty much identical in terms of capacity. Again, I have filled this completely full. I'd say depending on your items, sometimes you actually might be able to get away with a smidge more in the square mini, just depending on the kind of dimension and the volume of your items that you're trying to pack in. So here, very similarly, I have my sunglasses, I have my key pouch, lipstick, card holder, and then my phone as well. However, just like the square mini, you can definitely fit in your compact wallet if you wanted to, and that does free up quite a bit of space if you didn't have this bulky key pouch. If you were gonna go down that route, then you do actually have some more capacity in here. So, you know, if you wanted to carry some perfume, hand sanitizer, obviously you can pop in some flat face masks in here as well. You could absolutely do that. So again, it just depends on the kind of shape of the items that you're trying to carry as to which size can fit more. But generally speaking, I would say it's around about even. And now I'm moving on to the kind of official classic flap. So I wanted to show these two together, just kind of illustrate the size a little bit more. I will do size comparisons of them all, but these two I would say are the most similar in terms of look and pricing, and there's just not too much in it. So this one is the small flap and then this one is the medium flap. As you can see, like, there is a size difference, but I don't feel like it's too drastic, and especially in terms of capacity, it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. The pricing between these two, I think, is a little bit over £400 difference. So, I mean, it's obviously a lot of money, but compared to the other sizes and the other price differences, it's not as drastic as the others. So this is the small size, and because it's a little bit less wide than the medium flap, but you still have that double flap element, it does feel like a slightly more chunky bag, just because I guess it doesn't feel quite as streamlined, if that makes sense. I will try and show you in kind of close-ups, but it definitely feels like a bit more of a substantial bag when you hold it, even though it is quite a small style. And this one, it does have quite a short chain length. This isn't overly long at all. And so for me, I would never wear this as a crossbody because it just sits way too high on me. So for me, this is very strictly speaking a over-the-shoulder bag. You can also double it up as well, but it is quite a small style, so I don't often do that because on my frame, I feel like it doesn't look all that proportional. When you open it up, you do have the double flap, as you can see, and then it just opens up like so. But again, capacity isn't super roomy because you do take up so much room with that extra flap. So definitely is something to consider there. I don't find it overly cumbersome to get in and out of, but I've also kind of gotten used to these styles over the years. So if you're not used to the extra flap, that might be something that requires a little bit of getting used to. For me, it doesn't really bother me, but it's definitely quite a substantial addition to the bag because it is quite petite otherwise. And then you do have that pocket on the back there. You also have the pockets on the minis, but this pocket is much more substantial than either of the minis just because there's more bag and surface area as well. So I actually really like this size. I hadn't really considered it until I saw this combination, just because I felt like if I was going to go for this kind of size, I'd go for the medium, otherwise I'd go for a mini. But after owning it for a few years, I actually think it's a really, really lovely size, and a nice in-between one as well, especially if you're on the more petite side. I think this could be a really, really nice choice, and you obviously save a little bit of money off the medium flap as well. Next up is the small flap, and again, I feel this full. This one doesn't actually fit that much more. You have a tiny bit more space, but it's more or less the same items, but I was able to fit in both my key pouch and then also the compact wallet, as opposed to just having to be restricted to a card holder. So inside I have my sunglasses, I have lipstick, I have my small compact wallet from Louis Vuitton, and then I also fit in my key holder as well, and then my phone also. So there was enough room to go with the kind of full size smaller compact wallet, as opposed to just going with the card holder, which obviously I could fit in very easily as well. So a tiny bit more room than the minis, but not as much as you perhaps expect. Next up is the medium size flap, and this one's a fairly new addition to my collection, but I did previously own the same size in the beige Claire. I ended up selling that just because I didn't really feel like I got the use out of it, but I have been using this one a ton more. I'm not sure if it's because the size has drastically grown on me so much as I find white bags very, very useful. You know, they obviously go with everything, so it's just such an easy one to grab and go when you don't want to spend ages styling up a bag. So I love this color. I just think white bags are so great, but I have also been enjoying the size as well, and I'm not someone who is a natural minimalist when it comes to their belongings. You know, when I really try, I can definitely pare down my essentials, but if you let me, I will just kind of fill my bags up with items. So it does take a little bit more effort to pare your items down. And despite the fact that it does look like it could fit a lot, it doesn't. Like, it doesn't fit too much at all. It's not so bad that you can't fit in everything you need. Certainly if you go for, you know, a card holder or slimline wallet as opposed to a long wallet, then it should be plenty room enough for most of your belongings, but it's definitely not a large bag. So that is something to consider. I have seen many girls wear this crossbody and I think it looks so great on them. I pretty much never wear a crossbody because I think it looks ridiculous on me, and I don't know if it's just a personal preference thing or, you know, torso size. I have no idea, but it just never really feels comfortable to me crossbody. So I exclusively wear this just kind of doubled up, which you can do because it's a slightly longer chain than the smaller one, or just with the single flap. And this is it with the chain drop, and I do actually think it's a really nice length. You know, it's not too long, it's not too short, it's just right. So I have definitely been enjoying this one a lot more this time around, and again, I do credit that with the color, and I do think color choice is so important when looking at one of these styles. You know, really going for something that you know you're going to get a lot of wear out of. But even size wise, I do find it to be quite a versatile size because it's just big enough to be able to pare down your essentials for day, but it's also not so big that, you know, you can't wear it out to dinner. I think it's a lovely size for pretty much everything, and for that reason it is actually very, very versatile. Next up is the medium size, and as you might expect, this is a tiny bit bigger than the small and by extension the minis, but actually not that much bigger. So I have filled this pretty much to capacity. I probably wouldn't go any more full than this, and I probably wouldn't carry quite as many items, but I wanted to show you what you could fit in at a push. So I did have an extra pack of Kleenex, which obviously quite malleable, so you are able to squeeze these in, and that's what it looks like on the inside. So I got in here my sunglasses, the Victorine wallet, mobile phone. I did pop in my hand cream as well, so this is an additional item I was able to squeeze in, my lipstick, and then also my key pouch as well. And again, this can be swapped out for hand sanitizer because it is approximately the same size as the minis that you can get. So that is all you can fit in. You can swap things around obviously, but whilst it is bigger than the mini and the small, not a massive amount. The tissues and the hand cream or sanitizer were extra items, but this one is quite malleable. And again, this one was really quite full to the top. And last but definitely not least is my Chanel Jumbo, and I love this bag. It's definitely my favorite, and it's not just my favorite kind of classic Chanel flap, but it's just my favorite bag in general, and it has been ever since I got my first one, which is what, 10 years ago. It's been a very, very long time, and this has just been a complete constant favorite. It's just a wonderful style and I really love it. I know not everyone shares the same view. Lots of people I know find it too big, too bulky, and too heavy. I don't find that to be true for me, but it is going to come down to personal preference. It's definitely a weighty bag, you know, you can feel the weight when you hold it, but I have a fairly high tolerance, I'd say, for weight on my shoulders. It goes back to my uni days when I'd carry loads of books, my laptop around, so I don't mind the weight. I also don't kind of usually feel it absolutely full. It does have a fairly large capacity though, and I would say that this is definitely the kind of big selling point of this style versus the other sizes. You'll probably be able to see, and I will show you in a second, that you can actually fit in useful things inside this bag, you know, like a water bottle and a small umbrella, you know, as opposed to the other sizes, which are definitely more suitable for paring down your belongings. You're not getting any of those items in, even the medium flat, whereas you could reasonably do that with this size. So it's much more suitable for daily use. It is definitely on the large side, and I do think that is something that you're going to want to take into account. And I don't think it is just about height and frame. Obviously that comes into it, but it's just about how large you like your bags. You know, if you're very petite but you love kind of oversized bags, then you'll probably love this. Similarly, you know, if you're tall and you want something that isn't going to look really tiny on you, then this will really work as well. I am a bit more on the taller side, and it's definitely a large style, but I love the way it looks. You know, I love the fact that even in summer, you know, it does seem to really go with outfits. It definitely looks a lot larger, but I think it just makes such a statement, and I love the way it looks. But then in winter with the layers, it looks a little bit more balanced as well. So for me, this is a great bag all year round, and I still just absolutely love it to bits. It is also worth noting the chain drop as well, and this is definitely one of my favorite things about it, is the fact that it does have quite a long chain drop. It's always a pet peeve of mine when I do have a larger shoulder bag and it sits quite high, because it just means that I feel like my arm just sticks out a bit and I can't really rest it really easily. Whereas because this is quite long, I just find it extremely comfortable to wear. And for me, this is just the absolute perfect chain drop, and that does have a really big impact in terms of how much I enjoy the bag and how much I like wearing it. One thing to also consider when looking at the different sizes is also the material that you want to get. So if you had your heart set on lambskin, I would always recommend going for a smaller style. I previously owned the maxi size, the one above this, in the lambskin. It was my first ever bag I bought from the Chanel boutique, and I love that bag so much. I was very, very careful with it. I used it a lot though, because it was one of my only bags, so I did use it a lot. But after just 2 months, I was beginning to see very, very considerable wear and tear around the flap and on the corners. And wear and tear will always happen. You know, I definitely have some wear and tear on my black jumbo, which I've had for 10 years now, and that is the grained caviar leather, but it is nothing compared to what I saw after just a couple of months with the lambskin. And generally speaking, I have found that the larger the surface area, if you do get it in lambskin, it's going to be much more prone to wear and tear a lot quicker, whereas I just don't have that same problem with these smaller bags because the surface area is so much smaller. So definitely want to consider. Personally, I would never go for lambskin in either the jumbo or the maxi size. If I wanted lambskin, I would exclusively look at medium or smaller. And then finally, I do have my Chanel Jumbo. Now, I have filled this one completely full, and I probably wouldn't fill it with this many items for me, but you could do if you were in a bind and you needed to carry this many items. But as you can see, it is very, very full indeed. So right at the top here, I have a little reusable bag. I typically wouldn't use this bag for kind of grocery shopping, but I do also generally carry one of these with me, so you could definitely fit this in if you wanted to. I do also have this little pouch with my sunglasses in, so I was able to fit in this additional pouch because I did have that little bit of extra room. And as you can see, we have a way to go. So I also have my Louis Vuitton key pouch. I got in the tissues, my phone. I also managed to fit in an umbrella in this little pouch as well. I got in a bottle of water. And then I was also able to fit in my longer wallet. Obviously a smaller wallet would fit in just fine as well. You'd have much more room. So this is the largest wallet I have, and it fit very, very comfortably. My hand cream, and then also a lipstick as well. So definitely a lot. I probably would have skipped, you know, at least a couple of these items, but definitely in a bind you can fit in all of these. It is a very, very roomy bag, and you could certainly use this for a full day out if you wanted or needed to. Okay, so first up I have my Chanel Square Mini. I love this size. It's definitely a small bag, perhaps too small for some people, but I just think it's adorable. For reference, I am 5'7", and I don't know whether I'd wear this with like super chunky layers, but for me it's just a really nice one to wear with dresses or jeans, just any light layers. I think it's just really, really lovely, just popped on the shoulder like so. And for my personal preference, this does sit a little bit high crossbody on me, but you could definitely wear it like this, especially if you were more petite than I am, then I think this would work really, really well. Or if your preference is for your bag to sit a little bit higher, I think it's a really nice option too. I just prefer mine to sit a little bit lower, but definitely an option if you want to wear it like this. Next up is my rectangle mini, and I have them both here so you can see. It isn't a massive difference, but this one definitely does sit a little bit longer, and just those few extra kind of centimeters, I do feel like it makes a bit of a difference in terms of how it drops and just how I feel like it looks. So my preference in terms of wearing like this is definitely for the square mini, just because it sits like that tiny bit higher, which I do think makes all the difference. This is definitely my favorite way to wear it though. I love how it looks crossbody. I just think it's kind of suited to wearing like this. Sits at a nice height and it's just kind of perfect in terms of access and how it loops around. And I would be fine to wear this kind of with coats as well, just because you do have that little bit of extra length. And just to give you a reference, this is what the comparison is. As you can see, the square mini does sit quite a bit higher, which is why my preference is to wear it just on the shoulder, and my preference is for the rectangle mini to wear it crossbody. Okay, so this is kind of the master shot of all the Chanel bags, and obviously because there's four, I've had to stack them a little bit, but hopefully this will give you an idea of the crossbody length of them all. And it kind of goes, you know, rectangle mini and then square mini, and then with the shorter chains you have the small and then the medium flap. So that is definitely quite a variety of lengths here. The rectangle mini is certainly the most suitable for wearing crossbody. Again, it does come down to how you like to wear your bags and if you mind the kind of short length and your bag sitting a little bit higher. And just to give you a slightly cleaner view of the small and the medium size, because I think the medium size was a little bit distorted because of all the stacking. The medium does sit a little bit lower than the small on the crossbody. There isn't masses in it certainly, and they're not really vastly dissimilar sizes in general, but the small definitely does sit a little bit higher crossbody. And then on the shoulder, as you'd expect, very similar. The medium just sits a tiny bit lower than the small, but that's also just because it's a slightly taller bag as well. So not too much in it, I'd say. Definitely a similar kind of look, you know, just a shorter kind of on the shoulder bag. Not masses in it, but there is a slight subtle difference, but not too much at all. And here is the small size just by itself. A really, really nice, elegant size, very dainty, but a really nice one just to pop on the shoulder. I don't feel like it looks kind of out of place doubled up either though. It does sit, you know, a fair way down, not super high up. So definitely an option to wear it like this if you want to. And this is the medium size just with the full length chain just on the shoulder. This is probably my favorite way to wear it. I do wear it doubled up as well, but I really like the drop here. I'd say that even though this is still very high, it's a tiny bit more comfortable to fit than the small one. Still higher than I'd probably go. I don't tend to wear it like this, but I know lots of women do wear their medium flaps just crossbody, and I think it always looks great on them. So again, personal preference, definitely a bit more comfortable than the small, but it does still sit fairly high. And this is how the small and then the medium look just on the shoulder. Not too much of a difference again, and I think most of it probably does come down to the actual size of the bag. Doubled up, the chain difference isn't quite as much. There's definitely a difference, but it's not masses. And then finally, I have my Chanel Jumbo, which is obviously a fairly large bag. Just even doubled up, it's, you know, very substantial indeed. I love it, but I just love the kind of slightly oversized look. Obviously the maxis are even bigger. This is probably the biggest I would go in terms of the flaps now, but yeah, definitely my favorite. I just love the way it looks, and I love it for summer, winter, everything. And this is it crossbody. As you can see, still very long and very large. And then I have finally here my medium and my jumbo, just both on the shoulder. I always feel like there should be a size in between because there's just such a huge difference between the sizes here. So this one is the medium, still a fairly petite bag. And then I have the jumbo, which is definitely not a petite bag. So big size difference between the two. And yeah, very different in terms of functionality for me as well. Now for ranking my favourites, and no surprise to anyone at all, but my jumbo is my absolute favourite, always has been, I think always will be. I just love it. Won't be for everyone if you don't like large bags, definitely won't be for you. It's large in every single way. I think it makes a huge statement. It looks quite large on you. It can fit a lot, like it's just a large bag, but I love my large bags and I find these so practical and beautiful, and this to me is forever my favourite and I just adore it. That said, on the other side of the spectrum, my second favourite is actually the smallest, which is the Chanel Square Mini, and I love this bag. It's so adorable. It can fit a decent amount for a small bag. Obviously, we're not talking jumbo capacity level, but it can fit a decent amount, and I really think you get that kind of classic Chanel element, but with an element of whimsy as well with this more petite size. As for my next favourite, I've got to say there isn't too much in it. It is a flip between my medium flap and my small flap. In terms of my actual preference, like, they're just too similar for me to really have a drastic favourite. They are similar in kind of obviously look, in function. The capacity isn't that big of a difference. The chain length isn't that different either. They're just very, very similar. I would say though, in terms of like my recommendation, if you were going to go for one, I would probably lean towards the medium. It is more expensive than the small, but it's £400 more expensive, and even though £400 is obviously a lot of money, when you reach the kind of £5,000 and above mark, percentage-wise, it's obviously kind of a smaller percentage of the overall cost. And especially if you're thinking about resale value, you know, I think often these are forever bags for people, but they're also, you know, a solid investment, not in terms of stocks and shares, but in terms of if you ever did get bored of it and wanted to sell it, you will likely be able to recoup most of, if not all of your money. I'd say the medium is just a little bit more classic in that sense and a little bit more of a safe bet. That said, again, not too much in it. I like them both equally, but my slight preference and recommendation would go to the medium. Which does leave my Chanel Rectangle Mini, and I do sort of really like this size, but it just kind of comes last in terms of preference for me for all the reasons I mentioned, in that it's just a little bit long and you can only wear it crossbody, whereas that isn't the same kind of look as what you get with the medium and the small classic flats. They do have that much shorter chain, which does impact the look. It's not huge, but it definitely is there, and I think because of the longer chain and how much more suitable it is to wear in crossbody, there is just a slightly more casual element, and for some people that might be like the absolute selling point, because I know many people this is their favorite size out of all the different sizes regardless of price. So definitely one that's going to be a personal preference if your style is a bit more casual, if you live in a more casual place and you just constantly like to wear your bags crossbody, this is probably going to be the one for you. And as I showed before, you can fit almost the same amount in the medium flap as you can with this, and it is considerably cheaper. So definitely a good one if you like your crossbodies and if you want that same classic flap look, but you want to save a couple of £1,000s. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it, you found it useful. If you were wondering about the different sizes, if you have any questions for me, if I missed anything out, then feel free to leave me a comment below and I'll try and get back to you. If you enjoyed the video, please do give this a thumbs up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.